right, it's now time to take a look at what's happening in the front pages of today's headlines. What is making the front pages today? Wenga, are you warmed up? Are you ready to get into this?
I'm set to go along with you with my... I'm sure we have a lot of interesting stories.
All right, okay. Absolutely, we do. Of course, we always begin with This Day, our sister publication, also the newspaper of record. This Day is leading with a response to yesterday's headline, of course, which was all about comments made by Malam Nasir Al-Rufai. Today, the presidency says Tinubu is a committed Democrat and he has no plan to stay in power beyond 2031. The rider there also speaks about comments made by Dr. Usman Bugaje yesterday on the morning show when he expressed his position that ex-president Olusegun Obasanjo did everything possible to remain in power. This is speaking to that statement that the former president had said that there is no evidence available that can indict him for wanting to have gone for a third term. Dr. Bugaje spoke categorically and boldly, and he said, well, he has evidence, so we're waiting for him to provide that evidence. But onto the lead story now, which is that the presidency is responding to those comments from Malam Nasir Al-Rufai. If you'll remember, he had accused President Tinubu of having aspirations of becoming a life president, and he was saying that all should be done to stop him from going back into office in 2027, because by his estimation, once President Tinubu gets into a second term, there's no stopping him beyond that. Well, the presidency have spoken firmly and said that is not the plan. President Tinubu has no intention. Context, the conversation here, you know, we always have to pull out the key editorial points. And the broader conversation to be had here is whether our institutions, our constitution, our polity itself is strong enough to withstand the chances of a leader potentially coming up with such an agenda, which is why we juxtapose it with the case of the former President Obasanjo, because people are saying if not for the National Assembly, for civil society, for the media who quickly reacted, that it's possible that it may have happened. I don't know, Wenga, what's your take on this misterm, if I call it that?
Well, it's about 2 years to... I think less than 2 years, or approximately 2 years to the big political transition in 2027. And such a strong political rhetoric coming from someone that has a high political pedigree like Malam El-Rufai would naturally be disturbing to the polity. Malam El-Rufai, the former governor of Kaduna State, is not a paperweight in Nigeria's politics, and he was a very close ally a while ago to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So based on his knowledge, his closeness, his association with Bola Ahmed Tinubu, one would not want to discard this comment, but it's really very disturbing if just staying 2 years in office and he's been accused of having a lifetime agenda, and also juxtaposing that with an alleged third-term ambition of President Olusegun Obasanjo while in power. I had an exclusive interview with him in 2012, and I raised that issue. The interview is available on YouTube. I raised that issue with him, and he denied ever toying with the idea of third term, because he said that that was a legislative bill. And he said that out of about 100 clauses in that bill, that the third term bill is among. But we also need to understand the political dynamics in this country, that some people's ambition, it's just like a popular movie, Nollywood movie, that had this phrase, if you don't want to be the Igwe, I want to be the Lolo. Some people's ambition and political career is tied to another person's career, and they could do everything possible to ensure that that person remains in power, and they are the sole beneficiaries. So there are political merchants everywhere that will do everything. But could President Obasanjo have been ignorant of such campaign, of him, of an agenda to perpetuate him in power? There is no way the perpetrators the peddlers of such an agenda would go ahead, he would need to show his indication. You know, sometimes when it's the end, about the end of a tenure of a president, and people are asking him, are you going for second term? He would say he's not sure, he will need to consult. Or at the end of the day, you will find that person accepting the second term agenda. That is the constitutional limits for now, according to the provisions of the law. So third term agenda, because of this part of the country, this part of the country in Africa, where we've had a series of sit-tight African leaders from Zimbabwe, you know much about that, late Robert Mugabe, to Paul Biya there in, just beside us in Cameroon. We knew the tragic end of Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, and so many, Mobutu Sese Seko, so many instances in Africa. So this thing has a spiral effect in the region, and definitely it will arouse suspicion. But be that as it may, the best thing is for the presidency to be focused and show transparency in its dealings, if it is sure that it is not peddling or having that, nursing such an ambition for life presidency.
Yeah, very well, Gbenga. So many things to take away. Having said that, I think it's also important for these opposition players who have platforms, who have followings, who have is around constructive issues, is around government issues. I think to make these seems to be thuggery against opposition parties. That's a cause for alarm. It's another thing for him to also come and say the new INEC chairman a few weeks, and the president who's going to be running in the 2027 is the one responsible for appointing that INEC chairman. Those are real issues that we can bite into and dissect. But to not lofty actions against somebody who's still in their first term, has no guarantee of a second term, it makes things a little bit too, if I may call it, myopic for the type of conversations that we're hoping to have to steer the nation forward. So, on that, to intelligent discourse, not all this abracadabra type of topics. Now, let's move over to the economy. Yesterday, there was some good news that came out of NBS. They're saying 95.95% non-oil sector contribution spurs GDP growth to 4.23% in the second quarter of 2025. Now, we know that the first quarter GDP reading was 3.13%. And in all of this, as much as the headline is focusing on non-oil, the non-oil contribution, which is 95.95%, this is actually a decline from 96.2% that we saw in the first quarter. Furthermore, when we look at the oil sector itself, we saw an increase in output. So from an average of 1.62 million barrels per day in the first quarter, we're now seeing 1.68 million barrels per day. That's a 20% increase in output. Generally, the industrial sector productivity is also said to have doubled in that sector from about 3-point-something% to about just over 4%. So the readings are positive. However, I think it's also important for us to continue to reiterate the fact that this is the first reading that we have since rebasing the economy. And we know that rebasing has included several activities that were previously not included in our list of economic activities. So naturally, it was expected that the number would be higher than the number reflected in the first quarter of 25, as well as in the same quarter of 2024, because we have encompassed more economic activity into our GDP reading. Gbenga, what are your thoughts on this? Are we moving in the right direction? A lot of reportage saying that this is a reflection of the economic interventions of the Tinubu administration, even though, of course, like I said, if you look at the math properly, this is more of a rebasing effect than anything else.
Well, I don't think we should be too skeptical or pessimistic about the figures. Some people say figures don't lie, but we've been proven in political mathematics that 2 plus 2 may not always be 4. So sometimes when you look at the imputing figures and the outputting figures, it depends on what you are actually imputing for you to get the actual outputs that you're talking about. We've seen what many people have accused as selective rebasing, but be that as it may, the indices are showing positive signs. We've seen the intervention of the Tinubu government, especially the CBN, curtailing speculative activities in the forex market, and also ensuring remittances. There is high flow of remittances, and also there is stability in farm-producing areas, and this is leading to positive economic index. And when you also see that the president just a month ago said that they have achieved its revenue targets, now we have a record showing that 90% from the non-oil revenue has contributed to the 4.23% of this GDP. Certainly, it's something for us to cheer, but we need to look deeper. We need to also come up with a transparent fiscal policy. Recently, the Global Fiscal Transparency Report questions the nation's procurement system. Though the Bureau of Public Procurement has come out to deny that, but they said that the Office of the Auditor General has an entire picture of the executed budget, but is not publishing the full information to the public. And they explain this, this has been linked to the non-autonomy of the sector that is still being, so there is a need for reforms in critical areas of the economy that would further spur the economy on the path of growth and recovery. So if the Office of the Auditor General, is not giving that kind of free hand to really do the proper check. We all know how critical and strategic the Office of the Auditor General could be in the nation's accounting system. So all this needs to be put in, all these necessary pegs need to be put in place to spur the economy on the path of growth. And so when you look at what the oil sector is also doing, it calls for cheer, but there is a need for intervention to clear all these news so that the bottlenecks in the sector could be removed, and a better adherence to the PIA Act. That's the Petroleum Industry Act, so that there could be a free market economy that would also put the nation's economy on a very lucrative and boisterous state.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because although we're recording an increase in the output, we're still far from our over 2 million barrels per day target that we had set, that was supposed to be sufficient to be able to finance our budget. And also, when you're looking at it from a revenue standpoint, we know that the oil price this year has been, extremely volatile. So, even with that oil sector, you're absolutely right. There's still several reforms that need to happen in order for us to fully enjoy the benefits of this oil. But let's go to our last story, which is also the lead image on this day, which is that image of Governor of Rivers State, Siminalayi Fubara, with President Bola Tinubu yesterday at the presidential villa. And the headline reads, Fubara, I've made peace with Wike. We go to the Nation newspaper, which also leads with the same story. Fubara, I've made peace with Wike. That's on the front page of the Nation newspaper. And of course, we know that the governor paid a courtesy call to the president. This is his first courtesy call since resuming office on the 19th of September, a day after his duties were officially said to have resumed. Remember, we played a game of where's Governor Siminalayi Fubara for just over 24 hours until he showed up. But since he has shown up, we've also seen him meeting with the ports authorities. He's released statements on how he has a desire to make the ports in River State more active and more profitable. He's also sent his deputy to speak with the ECOWAS Parliament. So there's a lot of activity happening around him, behind him going to visit the president. But the headline, of course, politics seems to always dominate. I've made peace with Wike. Gbenga, your take on Governor Fubara's new lease on life, if we may call it that.
It's taking a toll on a lot of far-reaching, coming with a lot of far-reaching implications now. And the body language raises a lot of questions. And the writings on the wall are not clear at all, raising lots of political uncertainties, if I may say. One, peace at what cost? Would that sweep under the carpet the need to probe the 6-month tenure of the emergency role sole administrator? So those are very important questions that we need to ask, because the fund is not retired Vice Admiral Iba's personal funds. So the people of Rivers State deserves to know what happened to that allocation, because we understand, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, that over 254 billion was approved from the Federal Account and Allocation Committee. So, and that is regardless of what was internally generated for the people of Rivers State. So we need to know what are the projects, because the telltales we've been hearing, the signals we've been hearing were that contracts were not being paid for, salaries, some salaries were not paid for. So, Rear Admiral, so we want to see that decisive action from Governor Similaye as he resumed. Otherwise, we would see it as a very unhealthy compromise and sacrificing the people of Rivers State that had supported him all along to ensure that he returns back to power. So in a democratic setting, like I mentioned, there are 3 important tenets that cannot be that is not negotiable, and that is the issue of transparency, accountability, and the rule of law. So where does it stand in this? Because those are very urgent questions that they need to answer. Then where does it belong to? Is it still with the PDP or with the APC? So, because the body language, the fraternity,
Benga, you're going
the
far now.
camaraderie.
The man, let him settle.
Okay, maybe I'm getting too hard, but we would keep our eyes on happenings in Rivers State, because it's one of the nation's cash cow.
Yes.
You know that they are they have most of the host communities in terms of oil production, which is key in the nation's economic framework.
Well, I mean, one thing is for sure, Gbenga, you're absolutely correct that we're going to be watching Governor Fubara's every move to see how, this peace will culminate, how it will be preserved. Like he has said, one of the biggest losses has been in terms of business activities during the period of state of emergency. So it seems for now he's focused on just getting business activities resuscitated in the state. Or maybe I'm just a hopeless optimist. I don't know, but I hope that this time my optimism will pay off. But while we're speaking about accountability, let's move to the front page of New Telegraph. New Telegraph is leading with quite an interesting story from the United States, who are saying that corruption, high-profile Nigerians risk visa ban, the U.S. warns. They say corruption fight knows no borders or limits on accountability. Now, of course, this is coming in quite a timely, in a timely moment, as we know that there's been a lot of back and forth happening, especially online and, with unofficial media and unverified accusations against various political actors, but specifically the Minister of the FCT is one of them, who has debunked the fact that he was accused of, investing in some properties in the U.S. and so forth.
Absolutely.
And now that conversation seems to have taken a life of its own, of its own online. Of course, we won't indulge ourselves in unverified online reports, but I think what's important here is the takeaways of, conversations around crime, corruption, proceeds of corruption. There was that big story that came out of the UK just last week concerning the San Mike Ozekome and Jerry Osani, if you remember, around the property and proceeds of corruption and, Tali, was it Tali Sani?
Absolutely. If you don't mind,
person
I
who said
want to
have
comment
never
on
existed.
the U.S. policy, visa policy.
Go for it. Yes, please.
Okay, yeah. This sent some very strong emotions within me, and it's nostalgic. I find it very nostalgic. Remembering the song of Bob Marley, Buffalo Soldier, stolen from Africa, brought to America. So I think that should resonate some very deep emotions within us. More often, we've found the U.S. as a destination point for many of Africa's corruption proceeds. So now denying them visa, I wonder if this is not just one of those lip service. First, I think the U.S. government should start by repatriating all the stolen funds. Let's start from there. You should be able to match words with actions. Because how come the West becomes a convenient and safe haven for Africa's stolen funds? So that question needs to be addressed. Otherwise, it will seem as if they are insulting the intelligence of Nigerians by saying that they are denying some political officers found in for corruption visa, and that it's a welcome development. But why do you want to hold the softer stick when you have access to the bigger stick? I think the U.S. would show more sense of responsibility by starting from that point of repatriating Africa's stolen funds, Nigeria's stolen funds especially. We know so many of these that have come in tranches, and the legal bottlenecks that they are putting in the process is just too much. So I think that the U.S. should come out in plain terms and explain some of these processes that it's some of these reforms that it's coming up with, so that they can have an inclusive framework that would deliver the goods, since they are an advocate of a liberal democracy. So they should show the leadership in accountability, transparency, and the rule of law.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a tool that they've used, several times in the past. The same threat hangs over the heads of South African politicians who belong to the ruling party ANC for similar reasons, for corruptions or allegations of corruption. We've had similar taking place in Zimbabwe as well, and that was actually written into American law. And there are certain people who were written into bills of Congress and said to be banned from traveling to the United States because they are said to have perpetuated a number of not just financial crimes, but crimes against human rights as well. But for me, I always like to speak about Frantz Fanon and his philosophies, because Frantz Fanon always spoke about how the ultimate colonial mentality is when we black people, or we the African race, look down upon ourselves. What's the context in that? The context in that is that we are so obsessed with the West and everything Western that now the West have realized that, if we ban them from coming to our country, it will pain them. That is such an insult, because what is so special about a US visa or any visa, especially if we're able to repair our nations and make our nations fruitful, vibrant places where we can all flourish and prosper. But alas, we still have the aspiration of getting, and we still pray and fast for visas to their countries, and now they're using it against us, and I don't blame them. We have ourselves to blame. Benga, before we go, I just want to take this headline in 30 seconds, if you can summarize it for me, Benga. Daily Trust, very important story, and we can't go away without looking at it. Daily Trust is leading with Women Seats Bill Gains Ground. That's from the National Public Hearing on the Review of the 99 Constitution, which looks like we're getting there towards women having special reserved seats in Parliament. Your thoughts on that?
Okay, let me just quickly react to this. The senator that initially raised the gender bill, Senator Biodo Olujimi, was live on Arise News, where she confessed that the people who stood against her at the Senate when she presented that bill were women. So I think the women need to be sincere with themselves. Men are not the rivals. We are not the ones denying it's not a game against men. As far as I'm concerned, the statistics shows that women deserve a better representative at the highest lawmaking body in the land, because they have about 50% of the nation's population. But I think there is a need for more orientation, proper awareness among women, so that we could have an inclusive political and economic growth for the nation. A food for thought.
Thank you so much. Well, on that note, it is food for thought. I have several ingredients to add to the plate that you've set for me, but unfortunately we're out of time. Whatever transpires, this is a step in the right direction. We'll join countries like Rwanda, South Africa, Kenya that enjoy robust female participation in parliament. But until next time, you're watching Daybreak.